So allow me to share the link so that people know that we are live. Today we have a special show, man.
Can we share this link on WhatsApp groups as well?
Yeah. Let me send it to you on. Let me send it to you on WhatsApp. Let me send it to you on WhatsApp. Then you can. Yeah, by the way, we are live. We are live, so don't say anything bad, Roy. Like you were planning. Like you usually do. Don't say anything bad.
Yeah.
Today, by the way,
this is a horrible picture.
Huh?
The most horrible thing I've ever seen.
It's because, and I told you, Roy, I told you, on a laptop, because if you're doing Zoom on your phone, the angles are so tricky that
it's like I've got two noses.
If you're ugly now, you become even more ugly.
Yeah. How do I make it smaller?
How do you make it more smaller? Guys, we're going to start the show just now. I'm just sharing the link. And if you've logged in, please share the link. Today, we're discussing the European Super League, how it affects Africa, how it affects the rest of the world, football all over the world. This is a big one. And then I have a lot of Safaricom airtime to give away. I hope you guys saw. I've been showing off because I have a partnership with Safaricom. They're kind enough to give me airtime. So today I'm going to give
Oh my God, you've started breaking?
I've started breaking. That's your network, Roy.
By the way, the guy who needs bundles, Carol. You need to give. He's the first guy you have to give.
Roy, I thought you're in a top politician's office and you need bundles. Masharia, wherever you've moved to, by the way, now you're even worse. You look like you're a Nini. You look like you're an angel with lights behind you. Roy, you're on mute, so can you please unmute? Guys, you know we're already live.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Masharia. Okay, guys, I'm the one here in recovery. By the way, I've had a very bad 2 days. I didn't realize that. I know a vaccine, they're injecting a virus in you, but I didn't realize they were giving me 5% of corona. Why? I've been suffering for 2 days. I've had full-blown malaria, so I'm coming out of it, so I need your energy today. But
okay, guys, I'll say this, Carol. I don't think it's anything to do with corona. It's to do with Arsenal's results. Corona.
I was too sick yesterday.
I have a friend with the same problem.
Everton, I did not watch that loss. I did not watch. By the way, they denied us a penalty. You're 1 millimeter offside. That thing is just, you're a grass offside. That's just wrong. But anyway, allow me to introduce these people in front of me, starting with Weird Roy Karuhize, who's a sports fanatic, otherwise known as Great Roy. Kenya Gasheshe, Kenya Niaje.
Sama Carol, how are you doing?
You know, you console me when it comes to local languages because your accent is worse than mine when it comes to, oh my God.
Hey, but at least I don't come from Baringo Yakati.
Baringo Yakati. And Xavier Masharia, who's a late entry to this show. But then Xavier, you have to move your behind because all I'm seeing is white. You look like you're an angel. Huh?
That's the background he has put.
It depends on the team. It depends on the team he supports. It might be an angel because of who he supports.
The Manchester
United, who he supports, Manu.
Guys, we need to get into some serious business. Let me just send some shout outs. Seth Markle says, I'm watching. Thomas Alwala says, watching from Sondu. Selin Steve says, present. Michael Siambe, present. Jamin Captain, present from Rongo Town. Paul Bitok is following. Frederick Omondi, 2 days of serious body malaise. That is what I had. 2 days of serious body malaise.
Malaise.
Malaise. I'm Luo. Watching from Kenya, Baraka Haj, Yuaya Kaj, live with subtitles. I don't know why subtitles sometimes come on your phone. Joseph Mkitarian, Roy, your favorite player. Watching from Ruiru, happy to see Roy again.
Oh, Lord.
Are you sure you're happy to see Roy? I'm not. Alex Jawawara, watching from Bondo. Hey, that's my guy. Min Blessing is watching from Abu Dhabi, is present. Princess Nelly is tagging Masharia. Masharia, you're being watched. Frederick Omondi, tuned in from Nairobi. Christopher Motsotsi from Ejinja Corner in Kakamega, otherwise known as Qatar. Florence Radull is tuned in from Bondo. Anyway, guys, first of all, today I want us to discuss the European Super League. I know Saturdays is for Kenyan sport, but I think there is a relevance between what has happened in Europe this week and what is how it potentially affects football and sport in Africa. Just to wrap up, what happened this week is 12 teams decided they're bigger than the rest, and they're going to make more money than the rest, and basically, for lack of a better word, screw you. I'm trying not to swear, but they basically trashed. How would you assess what happened this week, Kenya? Let me start with you. First of all, Kenya, introduce yourself so people know that you can talk about football with authority.
You know, I've learned from Roy, even if you don't know anything, you can still talk with authority.
You know, I serve a very powerful God.
Anyway, Carol, thanks, man. I think like anybody else, I'm a fan. I play and take part in a club called Railway Wanderers. Very young club. We were just formed recently in 1922. And we've been going strong ever since. And I think it's just to hope I can share and balance some sense and some perspective into how what happens in Europe also affects us guys here, not only in the Premier League game here, but also at a social level. Yeah, because most football in the world is actually played socially and by amateurs, right? It's only less than 1% of the guys who are elite and professional. So I think in that level, we all have a stake. And what happened even with the Super League was a demonstration of what happens when people think they can turn football into something that is an exclusive thing, and which you can only define it in a very narrow way in terms of the interests of a very small group of people. And you forget the fact that it genuinely is the people's game, and that's a value that can't be bought even by money.
Roy, what is your evaluation of what happened this week?
My evaluation of this, I think what we learned is, first of all, how selfish the world is. Yeah. For me, honestly, it was a wider lesson. Yeah. The level of selfishness with which things are done. That leadership is about sharing a sport or sharing a business. But we learned here that, honestly, the people at the top, especially during hard times, will tend to become selfish, right? And the only way we can maintain or keep what we have, right, is by us being honest or passionate about what we hold. One of the things that I have learned about football today is, this last week, is how passionately people love the game. Because if it was any other game, there would have been also that easy swing or interest because you're in a bad situation to easily swing and move towards where the world is going, where the business is going. But it just showed me how important this game is to people on the...
Okay, your network made us lose your last word. Masharia, let me come to you. What we see, one thing we saw this week is basically the power of the fan. I don't know whether we have that power in Kenya. In Kenya, I have so many inboxes all the time telling me, Radull, do this, Radull, do this, Radull, do this. And I tell them, as long as you're a fan of the sport, you actually have some power, and people don't realize that. They think they need celebrities to do the work for them.
I think what we learned over the past week is that once in any organization, and you want to make a decision, you need to involve all the key stakeholders. And I think the fans in Europe have taught us in our country that power of the fans, if you are there in the stands, everybody will take you serious. The difference between what happened in Europe and in Kenya is that in Kenya, even when our politicians come for rallies, we always ask them about roads, schools, and things like that, but we never ask them to do anything about sport, meaning that we never have a voice when it matters. But now in the UK, you even had the parliament discussing the Super League issue in parliament because the fans are there, they have shown their voice, and they are a key stakeholder in the game. I always tell people that even in a football club, you cannot say that you need a sponsor before you have a fan base. The fan base have to come first, and then the rest will follow.
This thing of inclusive, I was watching, I think it was Jurgen Klopp's interview this week, and he said, we actually had no idea this was going on. We found out when we saw the announcement that happened, Kenya. And this, for me, this shows that it's quite disturbing that you're the commodity I'm selling, but I don't put any value in you when it comes to me making decisions. Because that's where I think the owners really missed the boat, because they would have done some feeling, get a touch of what people are feeling on the ground. But that didn't even happen.
But maybe even us, we don't need to be too surprised, in the sense that I guess we are used to seeing very rich and powerful people do what rich and powerful people do in terms of making decisions and not needing anybody else to take part in those decisions. So these are billionaires who own the club. Their business is what? Are they really in the business of football, or these are guys who are able to sell franchises around the world, which is how they own a lot of their other businesses, especially for the clubs like yours in Arsenal, Man U, Liverpool. These are all American owners. And American owners who other sports franchises that they have in their portfolio are franchises, and they operate in a closed system the same way they wanted to make the Super League function. So to them, probably they look at the rest of the fans like us and wonder, what's wrong with you guys? Don't you understand that this is how the business of sport can be run? And as a business owner, the things I always want to do, or anybody else would want to do, is to make sure you've got very certain revenues and lower your costs as much as possible. And these guys have been looking at us in the rest of the world, wondering, how do you run a football system where this year I can win the Champions League and then next year I'm out and I can lose all of that revenue? To them, that must make no sense at all, because you never see a point where the LA Lakers are relegated, right? Or where the Boston Red Sox are relegated. That doesn't happen. And it means to them, they know how to operate in such a system, and growth for them means they can go that way. And then they want to develop brands, right? So why keep Liverpool in the way it has been, anchored to Anfield? It's had a 150-year history there. It's valuable to the fans. It's valuable to all of us. But to them, what they're seeing, this is something that could capitalize a brand where one day I can have Anfield Dubai, Anfield Shanghai, Anfield Cape Town. I don't have to just be bound to one Anfield in Liverpool. I could expand this thing in such a different way. But that's a completely different value from what the fans showed the games means to them. Right?
But then as fans, are we living in kind of a fantasy world? And I want to play the devil's advocate here, because the bottom line, and there's a documentary I was watching this morning, and they were saying that some of the costs in these clubs that joined the ESL are astronomical. The Spanish clubs are 2 billion euros in debt, Barcelona and Real Madrid. So we are here as fans living in a fantasy world saying, you know what, I'm a fan, I have rights, but you're not the one with those debts. You're not the one in how do you marry the two?
Yeah, but Carol, when it comes to those debts, let's be realistic, Let's look at the country that didn't join the Super League, Germany, right? Germany has got Dortmund and has got Bayern Munich, right? And the entire league is not in debt, So even if we call it a business, it's about also managing the business, I think there's a level of irresponsibility that has come out through this, and I'm going to ask ourselves a question: do you think this thing was brought about or speed-tracked because of COVID, or it generally was going to come eventually?
It's been coming.
Is this a reaction of the upper class world because of COVID, or this was always coming?
It's been coming from but I understand that they picked this time because they thought, one, the clubs are even further in debt because of the losses they've made around COVID. Two, they felt that since the stands are empty, the demonstrations won't be felt as much. They didn't realize people would still go on the streets. But it's been coming. If you've been seeing Wenger's interviews that have been going around, Super League has been coming. And to again play the devil's advocate, I think it will still come. They probably just they'll probably reevaluate some of the structures that they put on it.
So you think it will come again? It will come again. So it's faded off now. Is it going to come again?
If UEFA doesn't take steps to make Champions League give these big clubs more money, these big clubs know the power they have. And we've already seen what UEFA have done this week, expanding the Champions League, more games, so that they make sure seeding, all these things they've introduced this week. For me, UEFA was sleeping and now they've been woken up.
Caro, I think I need to chip in. Yeah, the job of a regulator in any industrial space is to create mechanisms whereby all the players can have a level playing field. Now, what we have now is a case of mkuki kwa nguruwe, kwa binadamu ni mchungu. When these funds sold the club, their rights to these American shareholders, they didn't do that because they loved their clubs so much. They did that out of greed because there was money involved, and that's why they sold their clubs to these American owners. These American owners were not charity. They're not guys who are here to do charity. They're here to do business. Now, what you ever ought to have done, you ever ought to have created an environment whereby these clubs can continue thriving as they used to be, but in a financially stable environment. UEFA has deliberately failed to implement financial fair play. Now, if I'm a club owner like Man United, I'm the owner of Man United. The fans want me to buy Mbappe. The fans want me to buy Neymar. The fans want me to buy the Benzemas of this world. Now, if the revenues that I do not have, if the revenue stream does not meet the demands of the fans, I have to be creative. And that is what these club owners did. They were just creative. They just did this. They were just creative when it comes to making money. Now, what has happened is that just like any politician anywhere, I think UEFA using Sky Sports and the big names in football, the vocal journalists in football, the Carragher's and the Rio Ferdinands, they have been able to whip the fans' emotions into fighting the Super League. But I don't think the Super League is the problem. I think the problem is at UEFA. If they are able to make FFP a reality, then the clubs will not want to go the Super League way. But if UEFA will not make FFP a reality, then the Super League will definitely come back.
Can I ask Macharia?
Yes.
One thing. So I really agree with your point one, that in this whole thing, UEFA has come out trying to look like an angel, and they are not, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, they have taken advantage of the fact of this whole sort of crisis to expand the Champions League in a way that may not even be helpful to football clubs and have players' interests at heart, right?
Yeah.
But there's something else you said. You said when these fans were selling their clubs to these American owners, right?
Yeah.
What were they expecting, right? Were they expecting these guys to run it like a charity or what? So two things. One is the fans didn't sell the club to these guys, right? So if you take the case of someone like Liverpool, these American owners bought from previous American owners, right?
Yeah.
In the case of someone like Man United, those guys took debt to buy Man United. So they never even used their own cash to buy Man United. But they managed to take debt, leverage the club, and still take dividends out of the club over $1 billion over 10 years, right? And so really get wealthy at the expense of the brand of Man United. And I think two things. If you have a problem with your business model with these clubs, they are not actually trying to run themselves any better. Florentino Perez at Real Madrid is not trying to lower his costs in a way that you do with any other business. He's trying to increase his revenue without necessarily decreasing his costs. So if I have, let's say, a bathtub and I have a hole in the bathtub, now what do I need to do first? Do I need to block the hole, or do I have to start turning the tap to put more water in the bathtub? Right?
But you see,
so I have to fix that. I have to fix that hole, and the hole where these guys lose a lot of money as a business is players' salaries and agents' fees. So the thing with them is they come in, they take ownership of the club on one side of ownership of the club. They've injected cash and all of that. But let's not forget, as amazing a job as the owners of Liverpool have done in the last 10 years, of all the league championships Liverpool have, one has come in their time.
Yes.
So we have to balance that. Yes, you did bring money to the club. Yes, money is important. But there was a value in the club which convinced you to bring your money in the first place. What was that value? Because that value was there before you, and it will be there after you. And that value is in the people who stay with the club and give that club everything. If you keep these owners with all their cash and remove the whole value which was there before they came, which is the fans and the history and the tradition, that money will not recreate that. You can't recreate that with however much money you have. And I think there has to be a balance in between the value money brings and the value that other people have brought into this whole ecosystem as well.
Yes, yes. You know, Ken, I want to just go to what Kenya said, yeah? Kenya, you've talked about the fact that real wealth might not be in the money only. That's not where the wealth of the club is. The wealth of the club is in the story of the club, the way the club is supported, the way the club is leveraged. We've seen a lot of clubs like Liverpool, last one in the 60s, yeah? Kenya, till recently, yeah? It was in 65 until recent years, yeah? Right? It's only the last, I've watched football with Kenya for about, what, 52 years? And they've not won anything, yeah? But the fact is there's a lot of wealth. What Kenya is actually saying is true, that the real wealth in the sport is not in cash only. There's a lot of clubs. What's the point of having youth academies and stuff like that if we don't use them or build them? If we just go out in the market and buy players, why do we have those things? What's the point, right? So I think what these guys have realized, it's not about pockets only. There's a lot of wealth in the stands. There's a lot of wealth in history, and there's a lot of wealth in the support from around the globe, right? And that's why money has now, what we have been unleashed is, what we have learned is that everyone is talking about wealth in terms of cash, in terms of the pocket, in terms of what cash can bring to entertainment in the game. And everyone has forgotten that there's a lot of wealth in what we watch when we see small teams play big teams, when we see people from poor places come up and take the game. That is where wealth is. There's a lot of wealth in life that is beyond money, and it's lost.
Which, Roy, it actually brings to how this affects Africa. In Kenya, we were having a conversation the other day on how if the Super League went through, how it would affect Africa and what we can learn from this whole thing.
I think the most damaging thing about the proposal for the Super League was you can make cases for whether people need money into their business model or not. But the single, I think most damaging thing about it is the idea that you're going to have a closed league from which none of these guys can get relegated and nobody can get promoted into that. So the minute you turn football into an experience, and you know, it's not good enough to say, what's the problem? See, my team is in that league now, so me, I'm okay, right? Me, I support Man U, I support Liverpool, my team is in that league, me, Kosawa. The rest of you, Leicesters and what have you, too bad for you. The minute you create something like that and you make the money in football exclusive to such a small group of people, there's no way you don't damage the rest of the game.
And
because
I think fans got that, because the fans that were demonstrating were fans of clubs who were in the Super League.
Right. So, I mean, and you see, it speaks to what Macharia was saying about UEFA. Macharia, let me ask you, if this thing went through, how long would it take the accountants at UEFA and FIFA to then say, oh, so this is how the future of money in football is going to be made, by closed leagues like this? Sawa. Next, in a few years, you're going to find we are now going to have closed international tournaments by invitation only. And who do you invite to such tournaments? You only invite countries with players who have a global standing. So all of a sudden, if you're Kenya, what's the need of having qualifiers for a World Cup? You don't need that anymore. You just have a World Cup with the countries that have the big players. All of a sudden, I don't need Kenya, but I can do Egypt, they have Mo Salah. I can do Senegal, they have Mane. If you're India, you don't need to go for qualifiers unless you have a Son Heung-min of your own. You're Canada, it doesn't matter. So the rest of you small guys in the world no longer matter because you don't have those kind of marquee players. And that becomes the culture by which football is run. So at some point, it comes to affect you even at this level, having started at the elite level in that way.
But I guess it also means that for young players in Africa and Kenya, you can never dream to get into any of these big leagues because the opportunities have dwindled, basically. Who want to go and play with a Burnley that doesn't have a Manchester United in the same league? You know, it waters down the value of football worldwide. That's what I see.
But you see, Caro, all I'm saying is that I'm not saying that I support the league as it is. All I'm saying is that if UEFA doesn't act, the situation as it is, the Champions League as it is not sustainable, and a lot has to be done. The effect of the Super League, or having what they are calling a closed league to the rest of the world, is simply the fact that we shall have revenue on the revenue in football only to a few. And for me, what I always see is that talent in the game will not be, the quality of talent will go down because the competition is not there. If you look at the time, and I think I said this on the terrace sometimes back, if you look at the time when we did not have a lot of money in the game, when the Pires and the Henrys and the Beckhams and the Rooneys of this world were playing football, the quality of the game then was much better. Nowadays, I always give a very classic example. Olivier Giroud is a World Cup winner. Olivier Giroud in the 2000s would not even have made it to the second team of France. So for me, my thinking is that if we go the way we are going, yes, the revenue may not come down, but I also think the talent development will also face a big hit. And if UEFA doesn't act, it's very much possible that Nicolas Bentner, type of striker, will win the World Cup again.
Let me throw a spanner in the works. Huh?
Yeah.
ESL does not work for European football or world football. Africa, we have a problem in terms of fan bases. And one of the reasons I think is our competition lacks excitement, generally in African leagues. Would a Super League work in Africa? If you had the type of league that had maybe Goren AFC, then you bring in Simba Yanga, then you bring in Asante Katoko, you bring in Pirates Chiefs. No. Would a Super League work in Africa? Would that be something that then gives interest to African fans to support their game? Because we don't support our game. Let's face it.
Okay. Can I answer that one? That one I want to answer. That one I want to answer first. Carol, what that thing
okay,
is,
student.
Okay, that one I have to answer. It's what Kenya used to have in his clothes. It's called a patch. What you'll be doing with a Super League is creating a patch. People will get excited in Africa because what will happen is there'll be a skyrocket of increase or in interest, but for a very short period of time, right? Everyone will be interested in the big leagues, but what will happen is that you'll have completely forgotten what Africa's biggest problem is and what Kenya has been saying. You'll not be building from the bottom. So it'll be having, a house with, what's it called again? A house with a beautiful room, a big room, great paintings, everything, but it has got no electricity.
No foundation.
No, but wouldn't it depend, Roy, wouldn't it depend on the structure you put around it? Because
Carol, it's going to make it very famous. We're going to be in this situation where you have celebrities, but you don't have grassroots musicians. That's what you're having.
If I was in charge, say, of implementing it in Africa, you then make sure that all these teams have proper academies and youth structures. You put all that in place. Of course, in Europe, it can't work because they've already developed their leagues. They already have excitement to their leagues. The question I'm actually asking is, what can we do in African football? What can we do? What suggestion would you make? Because somehow it's not working. If that Super League was being implemented in Africa, I don't think we'd have even seen one fan on the streets, maybe on Twitter, not on any streets. We call ourselves passionate about football, but really we are not. We're passionate about the package of foreign football, how it's been packaged.
Caro, I'll begin with Kenya here.
African solutions here, eh?
Kenya, for me, let me talk about it as a Kenyan. What can we do in the Kenyan game to bring the fans back? One thing we all have to agree is that the one thing that divides Kenyans the most, but unites Kenyans the most, is something called tribalism. And I think if we use tribalism in this country positively, we'd actually have so many fans in the stadium. I'm getting a situation whereby we go to Machakos and get a team of Ukambani. They meet that team from Ukambani, another one from Garissa. We get another one from Kisii, another one from Rift Valley, another one from Coast. So that you have community-based teams, whereby if I'm in Dheka, for example, I know I'm going to the stadium, Micro will be performing, or maybe Salim Junior, Meti Salim will be performing or something. That way, I think the passion in the game will come back, because one thing that excites Kenyans the most is that aspect of tribalism. And I think that if we were to use it positively in this country, we would have a very, very vibrant league.
Me, I'm 100. I'm 100%. Just Roy, just give me a minute. Me, I'm really 100% with Macharia there, in the sense that you have your solution, whatever it is going to be long term, has to be based around communities and teams being part of their communities. And exactly. if you want to do it in terms of tribes and regions, that's a very natural way to do it. But there's so many ways to recreate a community. But also because even those leagues we watch in Europe, that Premier League, it's the top of a pyramid. A pyramid that when you're saying Liverpool is 150 years old, that pyramid is 150 years old. There are amateur teams there which are community-based teams which are equally as old, right? And It means in the Premier League, remember that thing I was telling you, they have what, 1.5 million boys who play youth football in England. Of those, only 180 are going to play a minute of Premier League football. So it means the culture of your club is in that 1.5 million people. It's not of your country, in football in your country. It's not in the 180 who play in the Premier League. It's in the 1.5 million who are in all those other teams and all those other communities and all those other cultures. So if you do an African Super League, again, you're just going to create a closed group of teams for people who already have money, but you're not going to do any of that other community-based building, right?
But Kenya, what we're trying to say is that inspiration in the lower class in Africa, we're saying there's an opportunity to do it upside down, because if we're going to speed track this process, building the grassroots takes, as you've said, 100 years. It's built over time. If we want to fast track things, let's look at the big teams we have and make them very famous and appreciated, and then say, feed into smaller teams. So we're not saying stop the smaller teams, but in Africa, we're saying, let's go to the top first and make it look.
No, Roy, what if you do it? Roy, what if you do it? What if you actually do it the opposite way? Because Africa might present you with a chance to do it the opposite way. When you do an Roy, exactly. Listen, I'm not.
Let me tell you the challenge the opposite way is the fact that we need money in this game. Convincing a
game now, Kenya, we have no time.
Support Bondo Village team as opposed to Gor Mahia, who are playing Simba this weekend. You know
exactly.
So how successful, when guys are telling us actually we have no time, how successful have you been with these big teams here anyway? And when Macharia is telling you to get 1,000 people to come and watch a community team is something that can happen much faster than you're going to get 30,000 people going to watch Gor Mahia.
And also, Kenywa, to add on to that point, I think when we say that we want to have a Super League, for example, and take Gor Mahia against Simba, do you realize that those two clubs are the level in terms of finances, fan bases, everything, like heaven and earth? Yeah. It's very different. Gor Mahia itself, I don't think they even have do they have an office, by the way, or a shop where you can buy Gor Mahia?
It's different. It's very different.
A home ground.
Because under a structure, the investment would be there. But you're right. If you look at those two individual clubs, it's very different. Kenya, we are special. We were told by Michael Joseph, we're very special. We are special kind.
In fact, can I ask a different? And that thing I'm telling you, Roy, about doing it upside down. When you look at your company or your organization, and you draw your organizational chart, who is at the top of the organizational chart? Who do you normally put?
Yes, a person who doesn't actually take part in the action of the company.
You put the board of the company, isn't it?
Yes, they don't take part in the action.
And then now, if you are looking at the organization of a football club, who is the most important person who should be at the top of that chart? Whose interest should be first? The board or the player?
The player.
It's the player.
Not even the fans.
So if you organize your club and your structure and say the first interest that must be taken care of is the player, because the player provides the spectacle which the fan will come to watch. If you have and I've never seen a player who has gone and scored a goal and then to go and celebrate to the board. Where? You go and celebrate to you score goals for the fans. So the point I'm making is
Pogba's done it.
The point I'm making is those community clubs you're talking about, that is where you're going to find a very close relationship between players and fans. And then if you think about different ways of financing from that level, you may find you don't have to go and find 10, 20 million to finance a team for a year, but you can grow it differently. And you don't need 100 years. In 10 years, you can make a very big difference from that perspective.
Let me read
Kenya, what I'm just saying, Kenya.
Roy, I'll never get to the comments. Just hold that thought, please, if you can.
Okay.
Karani Kimosabe says the Sport Pesa Cup was some sort of East African Super League. It had the hype and the money. Super League in Africa would be modeled on that, and with some adjustments, it could be sustainable. Manucho Cheru said, but the new champions format is tiring for players. That's another thing, Rashford is just saying hi, watching from Kericho. Washera says, that's a very good question, Radull. I don't know which question that was. We're not talking about Arsenal today and then Barambara dancers. No. Princess Nelly, Carol, in Africa, fans are hungry. The idea of missing a day to go watch a game and sleep hungry, man. Find time to watch Man United, Kwani. Samuel Humphrey says the Super League will come back and clubs will agree on its formation because they aren't given enough money that's generated by UEFA. It's just business. Even UEFA Champions League was rejected at first, but look at it now. Frederick Omondi, question is, why make a stand against the European Super League when the same head of FIFA is proposing a similar structural setup for Africa and everyone is in support of the African one? Not sure.
Not everyone.
Not sure if we're in support. Me, I was just giving all angles. Fab Kariuki, the driving force behind the Super League is greed. All the teams in the Super League are all in debt and massive debt. They saw this as a way of getting out of debt. I think that is something that has come out completely. So somehow that, what you're talking about.
Okay, I just want to agree with the point there, Carol, right? I mean, Kenya has talked about the thing of building things from the grassroots, and I said over time, Europe has built that from the grassroots formation, and someone has gone there and made a comment about the Super League, which is an amazing comment because they talked about the Sportpesa League, right? I believe these things should work simultaneously. Carol, in order for us to build from the grassroots, we need to show there's a promised land. That's how Africans operate. Show us the promised land that you guys build in the grassroots. Meanwhile, show us the Super League where I can see one day I'll be here. Show us somewhere that I'll go to, right? Within Africa. So I think both of them should be done simultaneously. In Africa, we do need a Super League. We do need something that looks like the promised land. And we do need to simultaneously build from the grassroots. So I am supporting Kenya, but I'm saying the patience and time, we need to operate these things simultaneously. Let big corporates go and sponsor that Super League, and let smaller companies and smaller institutions build the community leagues. We'll never have leagues in the future without community, but if we wait for community to fester itself, we have seen it's not happening.
Maybe CAF,
so let's build a promised land.
CAF has also failed because we do have the CAF Champions League, but it's barely felt. You don't feel it as a Kenyan fan at all, you know?
We need to find out why.
Caro.
Yeah.
Masharia, yours.
Caro, long-term solutions are not solved by temporary. No, long-term solutions are not solved by temporary decisions. I give an example of this country. Anytime an FKF chairman.
Oh, no, here we go. Kenya.
I'm saying the FKF presidents, anytime they are elected, the first thing they always pledge is that we want Kenya to go to AFCON, we want Kenya to go to the World Cup and things like that. But the first thing I always say, if we want to grow our football, I think as a nation, it's time we stopped focusing on even qualifying for the AFCON or CAF or something, and first get our structures right from the word go. So that if we are going to build a community club, we're going to build clubs from the community. The time we shall have that project complete, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years. By the time we are finishing that project, that will be a very long-lasting project. I'll give you an example like Germany. If you look at Germany, the squad that won their 2014 World Cup, that was a squad that was built 10 years ago, right? And from 2014, you can actually see that this is a team that, for the foreseeable future, this is a team that will dominate world football. The same case to Kenyans and Africa. If you're going to start saying that you're going to build from the top, that will be temporary. But if you build from the bottom, by the time we are getting to the top, we shall have a very long-lasting solution that will not only be for us, but even for our children and the children of our children.
100%.
10 wise men. Have another.
Can I go outside industry? Can I go? No, guys, Carol, I want to go outside industry to give an example. I have to go outside industry. In Nigeria, to build the music industry, they didn't go to the grassroots and correct the spanning or the explosion of the nurturing of talent.
Now Roy has frozen. Roy has frozen. That was a good point.
No, Caro.
Yours, what?
Caro.
No, but for me, I'm just saying, I think it can work both ways. Masharia,
Both ways.
And the problem, I think, for Kenyan fans especially, is the demands we put on our federations. Immediately a federation comes in, we want to see success with Harambee Stars. And that's what happens is they end up going to the little black book and getting us 30-year-old players to represent us as opposed to building the next team. As Kenyan fans, we don't have patience. We even see it when Kenya Sevens is trying to incorporate new players. We're impatient. We want to see success. We don't want to see building. So there is, what we need is education of fans, first and foremost, so that we tell the fan, you know what, we're not going to qualify for Qatar 2022. We're not even going to qualify for 2026 World Cup. But we're going to have a team that can see gradual progress. So that education to the fans needs to happen. Unfortunately, we're so impatient.
So Carol.
Success tomorrow.
So Carol, if we took what you said and what Macharia was saying, and even what Roy was saying, just what would the response be?
What do you mean even what Roy was saying?
What do you think the response would be if we had an FKF president who came and told us that and just said, "Sawa, I'm going to be honest with you guys, we are not winning the World, we are not even qualifying for the World Cup in 2022, okay? Even though if you go to the FKF president, if you go to the FKF president's Twitter timeline right now, he's already committing how we are going to qualify for 2022, and you just tell us." We are not doing that, but we want to make, because who can win a World Cup for Kenya? Is it somebody who is in their 20s now? Or if we were to work the kind of 10, 15-year project that Macharia is saying, you would have to then be looking at kids who are 5 to 10 years old today. Because in 10 years' time, that 10-year-old will be 20, right? A 15-year-old will be 25. So the World Cup of 2026, 2030 is being won now by the guys who are coaching their 10-year-olds in the right way now, right? And those are the World Cups which we can be realistic about. Just because we're impatient doesn't mean that you have to follow something and yet you know your impatience is not helping you. You have to invest in coaching those kids now and in developing structures for them now. So if you came and said, here we are the federation. We know we want the national team to do well. We are going to do what we can with them. But here is the budget we are putting into community-based programs for kids playing football. Do you think we would get angry with you if we saw that happening on the ground? We might actually come and watch those games as well and follow the path of those 10-year-old kids as well. And over 5-10 years, we'll have stories of our own kids who have come there.
Okay. You know, Kenya, we're living in a very virtual world here. That's ideal. But it's not practical.
No, it's not ideal, right? It's completely practical because you have no chance of a 20-year-old. No, listen, you have no chance of, you cannot cheat a 25-year-old player today. They are going to go and compete with a 25-year-old.
Of course, I agree with you totally.
You can't. So the only Kenyan player you have today who has a chance of making it to a World Cup is a kid of 10 years old or less.
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years or less. That's it. So Roy, if you can't say it's ideal to say we have to commit to children. That's
guys,
not ideal. That's only the practical way to do it.
No, guys, when I say something is ideal, it doesn't mean that I'm shooting it down. That it's something ideal can be practical. Can it not? It's ideal. That's what it is. But let me tell you what is practical. Practical is when you take what you ideally have and then mix it with the realistic situation you're in. You have to mix ideal and realistic. You have to mix ideal and realistic.
So what does that mean?
Let me tell you what it means.
Can Harambee Stars realistically win a World Cup next year?
No, we cannot. So I'm going to say what's realistic. What we can realistically do, we can realistically invest in short-term goals and long-term goals. You can't say that long-term goals are the only ideal way to go. Ideally, long-term is a way to work a business. But
what I'm saying to you, the short-term goal needs
to be realistic. I agree with you.
The short-term, Macharia defined the short-term goal. The short-term goal can actually be the development of community-based football over the next 5 to 10 years. That's a great short-term goal, right? But this business of saying our short-term goal is qualifying and going to win World Cup in 2022.
No, not at all.
Nonsense. Yeah.
And also, Kenya. Okay.
There's something called sweet wins, Macharia. There's something called sweet wins. A sweet win is when you do something small and sweet in a short term to make someone feel good or emotive or connected to what is going to happen in the future. And I'm saying a sweet win is things like forming a super league. Actually could be a sweet win. I'm not saying it could be done, but I'm saying actually someone taking or investing in it would be a sweet win. Someone coming and investing in it would be a sweet win. I'm not saying
for who? A sweet win for who?
It would be a sweet win for Africa in the sense that it could be a sweet win in terms of showing the current talent in Africa that on a world stage, because you'd find Europeans watching this short-term Super League, they will watch it, yes, and discover talent that they would not normally would have discovered, and it's just a sweet win. It's what you call, guys, let me give you an example. Sometimes you buy your wife or your girlfriend a present, not...
You see, the network has shut him out.
Yeah, it gives Macharia a chance.
When his wife does, he never buys her presents.
No, Caro, what
me, I'm just saying, I'm understanding
that gives someone hope.
Roy, your network is dropping. Your network is dropping. We've missed you for like the last 30 seconds. What were you saying?
I'm saying I am not, as I've gotten money now. I'm not saying the Super League in Africa will not be a replacement for long-term goals. It will not. What it's going, a sweet win does, it just gives you something to celebrate over the short term. So if someone came and invested, if someone came and said, I am giving you guys $10 billion to invest in a Super League in Africa, would Africa say, no, if you don't give it to our grassroots football, we don't want that money? What would be your answer? If they said they want to give you $10 billion for a Super League, would you say, let's reject it because it's not for grassroots? No, it's a sweet win. It's something that you could actually celebrate over the short term in terms of it exposing players who are currently existing, but we're not hanging our boots on it. We're not hanging anything on it. We're just saying sweet wins sometimes keep people going. They keep people going.
Yes,
Caro, you know, what Roy is simply saying is that if you want to marry, if Roy wants to marry a lady, he wants to take her to Enashipai today. And then tomorrow, he wants to assume that they are now married because they have been to Enashipai today. So what will happen is that you will have that lady for the night, but not have the lady from tomorrow. Now, if you let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of what a long-term project is. Before 2002, South Americans used to win the World Cup. Before 2002, there is no one time when the Europeans won 2 consecutive World Cups. After 2002, these Europeans realized that the more we allow these young South Americans to play football that is more technical, a lot of dribbling, a lot of artistics on the ball, we shall never beat them. So what the Europeans did is that they modernized what we now have as modern day football, the tiki-taka type of football, whereby it's more tactical than technical. Ever since they implemented that, and they did implement that for a night. After 2002, it's only one South American team that has made it to the World Cup final. That was Argentina in Brazil. Ever since then, the World Cup has always been won by Europeans. And you remember there was a time even Pele was actually complaining and saying that we are taking our young kids to go for academies in Europe. We're taking our young kids at 15 years to go and play their football in Europe. And then they start playing like Europeans. Once you start playing like a European, you cannot beat them at their own game. The same case happens to us in Kenya. If we are going to have a long-term project, it's a project that we shall always enjoy for the rest of our lives, just like the Europeans are doing right now. But if you go for short-term, say that you got a short-term win, it will just come once and that's it.
And Macharia, and where are these short-term wins? No, where all this time, Roy, you're giving us all these definitions. Give me the definition of insanity.
Yeah?
What's the definition of, yeah. It's doing the same thing all over and over again, expecting the different results. So here, this short win culture of saying we have to succeed and defining success by the success of a few big teams and the national team, doesn't matter. It hasn't worked for you over the last 20, 30 years. And why would it start working now? Right? And so what I'm saying is, if you had 10 years in football, in life and in football, 10 years is such a short time, right? It's such a short time, okay? So if you gave me that $10 billion and you said, where are you going to invest this? Should I invest it in Gore or should I invest it in 20 clubs at a grassroots level? In 10 years' time, which will have the best impact? I'm just trying to use your analogy a bit more.
No,
okay?
I gave you the example of that. I didn't say that money could be used either way, Kenya. Don't get me wrong.
I'm telling you that the short and the long-term wins here, you'll find them at the local grassroots level. If you don't do that, there's no successful football culture or country you can point me to, Roy, that does not have a strong grassroots culture? None.
There's none. I agree with
None.
you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But for me, Kenya, I'm calling it a priority. Yes? I'm calling it a priority in the sense that just because I am taking
No,
part
but
in
Roy, you started at the beginning. You started at the beginning
Can I blow
saying
the whistle? Can I blow the whistle simply because
No.
I don't want this to become an argument of ideas. This show is mainly for solutions. And
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is we all know, I don't think there's anyone on this panel who disagrees that what you need to do is start at community level and build
Definitely.
that are sustainable. Because
Definitely.
it is not sustainable. When
Definitely.
I asked whether a Super League would work in Africa, I was looking from the angle of interest, because that is what
yes.
down. Interest that comes from the fan base. We don't have interest from the fan base.
Yeah.
Yes, people are saying, and there's a comment somewhere here, someone was saying when there's a Belgut, when in Belgut, a local game can bring up to 400 fans and it's just a normal game, investments and sponsorship. So we do know that community clubs are watched. I think it needs to be structured in a way where those fans can then, that team of those fans can then be sold to people who can bring in the investment, because I think that's where we go wrong with community football. It's there, but we haven't yet we haven't found how to marry that and make that financially viable. That is where we're going wrong. But for me, the only value that would come from starting at the top or from having a tournament, not that it negates or rules out any community work, is the
grassroots.
Interest. Let's get people's attention. When they walk in that door, then let's sell to them what we're selling to them. Let's make them.
Yeah, we agree with you that.
And when they come in, it's like our basic just study structure of bring entertainment and interest into a game. Whatever brings you there, whether it's Jua Kali or whether it's Sauti Sol, if you watch the game and enjoy it, you will stay. So what is that thing, Roy, you know it, the thing that gets you in the door. That's what I'm saying. If the Super League is what gets you in the door, it gets corporates, it gets government, it gets FAs to shut up and say, let's pay attention. We've not even been
but Carol, isn't the answer to that question? What's that thing? No matter what you build around a game, whichever musicians or concerts you do, if you don't have good players, the game, the thing people come to watch is a good, what makes an entertaining?
I don't think you're hearing. I'm not saying make the rest.
Yeah.
Don't invest in the rest.
Right.
What gets them into the door? You know, it's just a study when we ask people why they don't go to the stadium. Rarely do they comment on the quality of the game because they don't watch the game. They just say it's boring. And you'll find people, there's a chick here who's my neighbor down the road. She came for one game in Kamtoyoyo. Do you know she started watching Kenyan football? Even whether there's activation or not. So it's whatever gets them in the door.
In there, sour. Yeah.
Yes.
But on the flip side, as you're saying, make sure that what they find when they get in there is also quality. So I'm saying work both ways. Work on the top.
Have to work both.
Carol.
Okay. Can I just say this? Can I just say one point, Carol? Carol, can I just say one point to agree on that? Just 1 point and 2 seconds. I think maybe I was expressing the point in African English, yeah? But basically what I was saying that is that let's use the Super League as an advertisement of what we're doing, right? Not as the main story.
Carol.
Let it be the ad.
Carol.
Yes, Mashaya.
I think if you want to bring the idea of the Super League to Africa, my suggestion would be, yes, if you're going to invest from the top, then these clubs that you're going to invest from the top, let's say we have an AFC, we have a Gor Mahia, we have a Sofapaka, and you want to have like a Super League for them. What you need to do is that you need to have those teams that you're going to invest have structures down there, such that if you have Gor Mahia, we have 3 under-21s, one in Bondo, the other one in Kawangware, the other one in, you understand? Then we have another.
Make it a must. Do you know that right now, if you see, the way the Kenyan Premier League was being run, I don't know about now that it's FKF Premier League, but under the Kenyan Premier League, on paper, every Premier League club was expected, was supposed to have initially it was an under-19 team, then I think because of Tusker FC, they under-21. because Tusker can't have underage players. But that is actually on paper. But unless you're bringing in the money, you cannot even force the teams we have to have youth teams, and they can't even pay their first 11. So on paper, it's all there. But where's the money going to come from? It's so
I think, Carol,
it's so hard
yes,
to financially sell community build-up of
yes. That's what, Carol, I'm trying to say is, Mashada, you keep using the word investing from the top. We're not talking about investing from the top. We're saying the top will have a different purpose. Its purpose is not investment. Its purpose is to grow interest. That's its only purpose. It's not for investment.
But you see, Roy,
some of these comments.
But you see, Roy,
wait, let me read some comments. Ukona Charger, that's someone's name on Facebook. Man, you guys have a good plan for Kenyan football. Okay. Frederick Omondi, I wish there was a government rep or a sports administrator in this engagement. Well, hopefully they watch. They usually watch later. They don't like me to see that they're watching, but trust me, they do. But by the text they send me in the week. Ochiweda, remember here in Kenya, we have sycophants who just worship corrupt leaders. The unity of fan base, though, is important. If we don't allow, they don't allow themselves to be used. He says, unfortunately, fans in Kenya are just after the leaders who are non-performers. Hey, Ochiweda, you have beef with fans. Serious beef with fans. Frederick Omondi, guys, let's be balanced here. What would be the positive comparatively of such a league if this idea of Super Cup was to go through?
Yes.
What positives would there be? In fact, I think we should say, how can it be revamped? That's what they should be saying, because the only positives, if it goes through as is that a few clubs will get richer, and it will make sure that smaller clubs are never able to compete, because you just have the financial muscle. So unless it
actually, Carol, for me, if we're doing a Super League, if we're doing a Super League in Africa, or the one thing which, whatever its purpose would be, I would still also be really against the idea of it as a closed league. You still have to structure it in some way where teams can go down and efforts. Because the minute you don't do that, the minute you make it a closed league, then we are not watching football as a sport.
Yes.
What we are doing then is watching content. Like now you have Papa Shirandula, you are watching a series, you're watching something. But that's not sport. Sport means you can win, you can lose, and you have to be able to deal with that, right? And if you're a football club, then so the idea, I think maybe there's ways we can structure it, but I would say from first principle, it can't be a closed league. So then how do we do a Super League which is open for us in that pyramid, for money to flow from that league down to grassroots, and teams to be able to climb from a grassroots up into that Super League as well? That dream has to be part of it.
I think that exclusivity is what, and if they ever come back, and I'm sure the ESL will come back, they'll have to check some things like that. Incidentally, there was a group of people, a couple of, about 3-4 years ago, who wanted to do an African Super League. It was actually called, I think, African Super League. And they actually approached me here in Kenya, and they said they want to, they want all capital cities to have, like, there's Gaborone, there's whatever, the capital cities of all these countries, Cairo and everything. And that is what it would be: Cairo FC, it would be Nairobi FC, Dar es Salaam FC, like that, Addis Ababa FC. And they were actually shot down by CAF. CAF refused to give them a license to operate. But that was their plan, to have an African Super League with the capital cities being buying and selling players. And they have a Super Bowl type final at the end of the year. So there are people who've been thinking along those lines, just so you know, but they were shot down by CAF. And I guess maybe reading the finer print, which I didn't get to read, it would have left out many smaller clubs. Roy, we can see you doing like this. Tell your people in your knee. We've actually done an hour. Kenya, what do you see as the future of Kenyan football? Super League aside, what do you see as, how can we get Kenyan football out of the pit we find ourselves in? Because we're in a pit.
I don't have all the answers. Let me not pretend or try to answer from there, but I would say that success over the next 5 to 10 years will come from and to people who organize themselves around the football experience, turning football into a social and family experience at a community level, where I can feel safe to take my kids, my family, my friends to go watch a game, and with the organization and organic investment which can grow clubs from that level up into the other leagues. I think it will come from something that happens at that level going forward, as opposed to it being something that comes and is defined purely by the success of our national team. I think structurally it will come from something Macharia said earlier on, which will be about how different people, different teams mobilize at that level and begin to grow themselves and redefine their visions. Because I don't think everybody is going to continue being patient with waiting for it to come from the federation. The federation is a necessary structure. It has a job to do. But I think if we wait, it will be very easy to lose another 10, 15 years of opportunity, which a lot of gains can be made by really organizing well and identifying teams and talented people, not only just players, but administrators, managers, coaches, and investing, and parents, because for me, the most important person in the game is the player. And the player as a kid, if we're going to develop things long-term, and it will come from long-term plans, is how do you develop great programs for kids, 5, 10 years old, and mobilize people and organize resources at that level of the game. I think that will give us a good chance.
Macharia, since Roy has disappeared. In fact,
I want to talk about, I want to wrap as I talk about two things, that the future of football in Kenya is community level. And we need to have a structured way of having community clubs all the way up the top tier league, such that even the kid in Mandera, the kid in Turkana, the kid in
Correct.
Moyale, the kid in Malindi has got an equal opportunity of playing in the national team as a kid playing football in Kawangware. Number
Correct.
two, the terrace is a very good opportunity for us to grow our game, because if we come here on Monday and banter about Mathare, Sofapaka, Thika, Gor Mahia, banter is one of the reasons that will actually bring fans back to the stands. Because I do not want a situation whereby I'll not be able to banter on Monday because my team lost, and so I need them to feel me in the stands. So those are two things that I feel are actually very important. As I conclude, I want to say, there's no society that has ever changed by we. All societies change with us. So let us not wait for we to go to the stands or to go to support our local game. Let us all begin with me. Let me support the local game. Thank you.
there's something I didn't really have time to touch on, and it's the fact that the way the Super League announcement shocked Europe, Kenya, the FA stood up and spoke, UEFA, the government, it was in parliament, it was, for me, it was such a, I won't say an eye-opener because I knew. I hope those, especially in our government, who don't think sport is such big business and big industry, did they see how Europe stopped, how the world stopped from government, parliament level, FIFA, everybody stopped and said, damn, our business is being interfered with. Here we still think sport is a thing to play, you know? And I just hope people were watching. I hope our government was watching. Boy, I have dreams.
But we must have those dreams, Carol, man. And like Macharia is saying, you have to develop the patience and the strength of mind to know that it's a marathon. You're not going to change football next year, right? You've been doing this for more than 10 years, 12 years, 13 years, right? Thanklessly. But it's only by really, yeah, and finding those people and that talent at these levels of the game where people are really trying to organize at a community level, and where the players, which will make a difference 10 years from now, those players who are kids today, like investing in them and trusting that by investing in them, then that's the long pass to our future, right? Because the federation must be concerned only with a 5-year timeline of its elections. We, as parents and as people who are involved with kids and the community, we can look 10, 15, 20 years ahead. Not that we want to stand in elections, but we are just saying we can't continue to let the future of these kids be held hostage by people who, we know they don't care, and we don't have to wait for them to show us more that they don't. But yet we can make an impact at that level and communicate. When Macharia is telling us about the terrace, these are places where we can come, share ideas, experience things together, and develop a new way of thinking and feeling about football, which matters to us, so that eventually, I'm just looking forward to where we are as excited about his team and my team playing each other as we are about Liverpool Arsenal game, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that will come when the kids we have developed, we are seeing them compete and grow with each other. That will make it very personal and relevant to us.
Yeah, and you see the beauty of it when we get there. Even our sports, our news anchors will stop reporting sports as habari za michezo. You know, habari za michezo looks like you are reporting jokes. So
in 2007, when I decided to focus on Kenyan Premier League, we used to get a paragraph this size in the Daily Nation and the Standard.
Imagine
that was the extent of coverage of Kenyan.
And today you have guys watching from Dubai.
The first time I read Kenyan Premier League scores on Kiss 100, I've never seen our text. Those days there was no Twitter. The text messages coming in like, Radull went where? Kenya has a league. What the? You went into Nyayo Stadium. People like, yeah. You know, the reaction was, and I was like, yeah, and I was fine, and I'm going back again next weekend. You want to join me? You know, the reaction was just unbelievable. And right now, at least we're given some coverage, though, yeah, if you speak to sports people in TV stations, they get the last 5 minutes of an hour bulletin. And if that bulletin has run over by 3 minutes, they get 2 minutes. They get the last 3 minutes cut off. That is how serious we take this billion-dollar industry. So yeah, shame on us, but hopefully things will change. I'll keep talking. We'll keep trying to change the game. Huh? So Roy, any last, oh, he disappeared. Anyway, guys, thanks so much. Thanks for this discussion. I've actually enjoyed it. And I think we should have more of these conversations. Maybe do get people from the sports administration and policymakers to come here and have this conversation with us, you know. But thanks, and have a lovely weekend. Masharia, you let me ambush you. Thank you. Kenwa, we'll talk, yeah?
So, Masharia, good to meet you as well, man.
Good to meet you, Kenwa.
Yeah, next time, Kiwanjani.
Kiwanjani. So, cheers, guys, and thanks to everyone who watched. I hope whoever got the airtime, you celebrated. I'll give more on this page throughout the week, but thanks for watching Radull Live, and see you next week.
All right, thank you.
Bye.